Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown. The three, steps back, crossover, puts up a three. Rebound James. Second. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Cleveland! This is for you!
Good evening, Cavs fans. Welcome to another episode of the Block the Shot to Stop. I am Kevin Lynch. Got the whole crew here tonight. Skylar Webker, Tim Daniel. Hoping to talk about sunnier things than we are. Unfortunately, the Cavs drop their third straight game to Houston tonight. Final was 135-129. It's one of those things where you're going back and forth each side of your brain. Don't panic. They still have a 5-game lead in the East. It's an incredible year. These things happen. Versus we're also starting to see some trends that are maybe a little concerning. So we'll get into both. And I know we got some kind of big picture stuff. The month of January hasn't been as good, but let's start with the game tonight. And I'll turn it to you, Skylar. Skylar, what did you see tonight that you liked, and what did you not like as much?
Well, I like that Evan Mobley came back. You could tell that in the past couple of nights that, boy, howdy, this team was missing him. And I also liked, Donovan Mitchell really putting on the offensive works, especially there in the third and fourth quarter. Really made it a good, close game there in the fourth quarter. But I think they're losing their footing or their aggressiveness on defense. I think the rest of the league is catching up to Kenny Atkinson's game planning and making it a little more difficult for the offense to get anything done and kind of read through their defense a little easier than we saw through most part of the year. Tim?
No, good points. Tim, what about you? What did you see tonight?
I'm going to go Darius Garland again. I actually put on our Blue Sky account, which you can follow us at BSS Cavs. I actually had the question of, in a half-court offense, is Darius Garland the most fun player to watch in basketball? And I don't think that's hyperbole. I really think if you think about it, because if you think about Giannis, you're like, fast break, awesome. Like Steph, it's like mostly just like coming in screens. Like Garland is like getting an offense set and putting it all together. I think he has a case to be one of the best fun guys to watch. G-Wagon tonight, really, really good off the bench after Ty Jerome was so good last night. What I did not like was that Tristan Thompson was getting big minutes guarding Alperen Şengün. And I was all for him like using fouls, but man, and then they tried to do a hack at Adams, and that kind of backfired on them there at the end of the third quarter. So it was just a really frustrating game defensively again. And that's really something that's really, really irritating. It's really, like you said, there's trends.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to talk about one thing you said, and then I'll give mine and we'll come back around. But like Thompson, putting in Tristan Thompson there in the middle of the third quarter, which is a time he never goes in the game if Mobley and Allen are both there, it was strictly because Şengün is the biggest cheap shot artist in today's NBA.
Oh, 1,000%.
They were sick of it. It looked like he might have broke Jared Allen's arm on the one time where he hooked him, and he was doing it in the perfect game to do it with Tony Brothers, who just we won't go there. But like I'm telling you right now, Şengün, growing up, like I always thought Dwayne Wade was the dirtiest player. Everybody knows Grayson Allen was incredibly dirty. Like I'm telling you, Şengün is. Maybe quietly he's already getting the reputation. Soon he will be getting the reputation as the dirtiest player in the league.
How dare you talk about Cavs legend Dwayne Wade like that?
No, please. Anyway, I'll go to my good and bad. I'm actually gonna start with my bad because I want to like take my good to have you guys start. So, bad tonight. Like this might sound, counteractive or something, but like. I don't like the trend of the last few games of Mitchell and Garland having to do all the offense. This feels like the last two seasons instead of this season. I ran some stats and they're pretty similar. I don't know the exact ones for the last couple games, but tonight, so the Cavs, of the total shots they took, field goal attempts plus free throws, right? Garland and Mitchell took 65. The rest of the team took 52. I looked at that compared to the season. on the season, they're taking about 41 out of 111 shots in a game. So they're typically taking about 35% of the team shots. And then the last few games, they've been taking 65% of the team shots. And it's turning into one of those, you have two stars, your turn, my turn thing. You can say some of that was because Mobley was out the last few games, but this team has thrived all year on the totality of the team and getting impacts from up and down the roster, as we've talked about many times. I don't like that it's as well as they've played the last couple games. I don't like how kind of isolated the offense has been. But then the good, kind of contradicting myself. So short answer, two ones. A short, Julius Niang was awesome tonight, and I'm glad to see, because I think Niang is starting to take some bullets online about
he is
a scapegoat for the poor play or the poorer play this month, which I think is undeserved. I think he was so awesome in December that he's kind of been giving, the performance you'd expect of him in January, but coming off of maybe the best month of his career. And so he's getting unnecessary shots. And then Darius Garland, and again, Mitchell was awesome tonight, but I'll say something you may agree, other people may or may not agree. I think the wrong Cavs guard is starting the All-Star game. That's
I like that. I like it.
I think Darius Garland is kind of naturally in Donovan Mitchell's shadow because he's younger. He hasn't accomplished all the things in his career. But if you look at them, the totality of the season and the impact they've had on winning and the numbers and especially lately, I think Garland should be starting instead. I think they should both be there, to be clear, but I think Garland should get the starting honor.
I love this. I love this spiciness from you, Kev. This is fantastic. And thinking about it big picture, looking at box scores in my head just in the last couple of weeks, I think you're right. I really think you're right when I think about this, because Mitchell's had these, we've talked about this for 2 weeks now. He'll have this 30-point games where he's looks really, really good. And he'll follow with 2 games where he looks like cheeks.
Yeah.
And so it's
Garland has been way more consistent. I can only remember one bad Darius Garland game the whole year, and that was the first game against Boston. It was just the worst game of his career.
Yeah.
I could name you 7 or 8 bad Mitchell games off the top of my head.
Yeah, both Hawks games, the last Thunders game. Yeah, there's a lot. And so I like that take.
Skylar, what do you think about that take? And then we'll move on to the game.
No, I agree. I agree that Darius Garland probably does deserve it over Donovan Mitchell at this point. But he said it, or him and Draymond Green said it on the Draymond Green show last week, or this week. I don't know. The week's been so long. And it feels longer when the Cavs are losing.
Sure.
But they said it, it's really a popularity contest, the starters, because of the fan vote. Joel Embiid is 6th in the voting, and he's played 13 games.
Kevin Durant got picked over Wembanyama.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with that and everything. But I guess my point is, if we're doing it on most deserving, having watched every single Cavs game this year, I would actually give Garland a slight nod over Mitchell.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
I love Mitchell. I should not have said what I said. I apologize for that. That was not my intent. But yes, your hypotheses were right. Garland's been the guy.
Yeah. All right. Well, from there, Tim, I'll turn to you, because I know you looked into, as we kind of let off the show with, there's some concerns with this team, trends that are starting to build. The month of January has just been a bad month for the Cavs overall, despite a couple of really nice wins. And I think you wanted to start out with maybe the defensive side of the ball. So you take it away.
Yeah. So overall in this season, things look really good, right? They're first in total offense. They're 9th in total defense overall the whole season. In the last 10 games, the Cleveland Cavaliers are 24th in the league in defensive rating. That's before tonight. So that's going to change, probably get worse at 117.3. So that's not good, obviously. And, you can make the case that you're down Isaac Okoro, you're down Dean Wade, you're down Evan Mobley. You've in some way, shape, or form been out 3 rotation guys. It's probably 6 of these 10 games. I will also say, to be fair on their end, they are 3rd in offense at the time, which we kind of figured that'd be the case. But in the last 10 games, here's some of the teams they played and where they're ranked right now. So Oklahoma City, who they played twice, 4th. The Minnesota Timberwolves, who they played once, 7th. The Houston Rockets, who they played twice, 8th. the Indiana Pacers 9th, the Phoenix Suns 11th, and the Philadelphia 76ers 15th. So they have been playing offenses probably at the worst time to be injured when these offenses are striving. But I also think the Cavs are probably helping those offensive ratings with how they're playing defense right now.
I don't disagree with that. Skylar, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think part of it is health. I think, you're missing Evan Mobley for a while. We're missing Karis LeVert. We're missing Isaac Okoro. But I really think that the league is just caught up to Kenny Atkinson and the Cavs. Their game planning, their scheming. I think that's also attributing to the Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland kind of clunkiness, is because I think other teams are saying those two guys are allowed to beat us. Nobody else is. And so the Cavs are trying to use or take what's being given to them, which is causing the clunkiness that we saw, especially during the whole JB Bickerstaff era. But Kenny is my guy. I know he's going to pivot. I know he'll change up the scheming and the game plans. But God, we need it soon.
Yeah. I agree. So I agree with your point, Skylar, that like you can attribute injuries to some. You could make a good argument that Mobley and Okoro are the best two defenders on this team.
Yeah.
And so that's fair. My not even counter argument, but I would just point out is like, this is all now about, yes, continuing to build momentum, but really like, what are they going to look like in the playoffs? Look around the playoffs last year. I bet like 75% of the teams were missing guys. Like there's a good chance you're going to be missing guys in the playoffs. And so it's a valid excuse. At the same time, it's something you have to work through, right? Because if you're losing games because you're missing guys, then you need to do something different. You need to adjust rotations. You need to increase the starters' minutes. You need to make a trade. I mean, that's like big topic of conversation with the Cavs is like, do you make a trade and do you compromise some of your 10, 11, player rotation to get a higher end player and then only play 8 guys or something like that. I don't know, but it's an obstacle. It's like when we talk about the refs, and the refs are terrible tonight. Tony Bros is the worst, but like, I think being shorthanded, you can use it as an excuse for a game or a couple games or, whatever, but then you have to adjust because, Okoro's been, believe it or not, like Okoro's been hurt for almost half the season to this point. Like he got hurt in game 27. Tonight was game 45. I understand he came back for a few games, but he didn't look like himself. So like, using him being hurt as an excuse isn't quite like, I don't know. I don't buy that quite as much because you've been without him so much already.
Right.
But yeah, I agree with the defensive trends, and it seems like the defense, we always struggle with certain kinds of teams, and it's teams with athletic perimeter, big athletic perimeter players. Like Houston's like the most like one of the biggest examples of it. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, Amen Thompson a triple double tonight.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Like he's having a very solid, sophomore season and everything, but he's not a guy you should be giving up a triple double to.
Right.
On top of that, Kenny Atkinson has broken his streak of guys not playing over 35 minutes. Donovan Mitchell 37, Darius Garland 36.
Yeah.
Yeah, now you're also running guys out there longer, which I kind of want. I want these guys to ramp up in some sense so that they're, conditioned to play 40 minutes a game whenever we get to the playoffs. Maybe not in January, but at some point they're going to have to go with a longer minutes and maybe a shorter rotation.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And we can come back to the defense, but like just kind of getting it all on the table. I said coincidentally, I looked into the offense tonight and I talked about the concern with like Garland and Mitchell taking on too much of the burden. I think they're fantastic players. And I think certain games you may need that, but like, I just don't like it as a trend. The other thing, they haven't been nearly as good offensively in the month of January as they were the first 2.5 months of the season. A couple numbers to back that up. The Coming into January, they're at almost 42% from three. They're the leading in the league. They're below 36% for January, which is like middle of the pack for NBA. It's brought their overall percentage down like 2 points in the season. I think that's a really big thing. They're down about like 4 points a game on average. Would you say 4 points? But that can be the difference between winning and losing. Couple other things, their overall field goal percentage is down a little bit. They're shooting 2 or 3 less free throws per game. So just overall, they went from being, frankly, the most efficient offense in the NBA to now they're kind of in the bottom of the top 10, maybe just on the outside of the top 10, at least for this month. So, once we're at a 12-game stretch. They're now 7-5 in January, and they started out January with 4 wins. So, I don't like to cheat and just do, start at the worst game or something. So they're 7-5 this month. But you take away that 4-game win streak, they're 3-5 in their last 8 games. So I think that's enough data to know they at least need to start looking at different options.
Yeah, and the thing that kind of has benefited them as well is that they just have to be hitting this stretch that they're playing really well, like they're struggling when Boston is also going through the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the team we're keeping our eye on. We're kind of glancing over to see what's going on in their box score every night, right? And that's the team we kind of are like saying like this is who Cleveland should be modeled their team after, in a sense. Them and the Golden State teams that we've compared them to, but. They're kind of getting the lucky there, but like to kind of further Kevin's point, there's a lot of East teams playing really well right now. Milwaukee is on fire. New York has been really, really good now for probably about 6-7 weeks. The Bulls are somehow slightly scary. They lost tonight to Philly, but they're winning some games where you're like, how the hell are you beating those teams? So I think I'm not worried about them dropping out of the 1 seed by any means, but there is a lot to kind of keep your eye on with how things are going in the conference.
All right, so let's get in the captain's chair, each of us. And Skylar, I'll start with you. Like, we're all agreeing it's not time to like freak out and panic, but it is time to maybe do something to switch it up. Like, what's one thing you would look at is maybe something they're not doing now that could potentially, help them turn?
I think just being aggressive on defense. I feel like they've gotten very lackadaisical. I feel like they go into zone a lot more than kind of a man-on-man defense. I think that just getting back to that would be great. And like I said, trying to find ways to have more than just Mitchell and Garland be your offensive juggernaut. I mean, granted, that's what teams are looking for. They're trying to take these other guys away. But you got to find ways to get Jared Allen still involved. You got to find ways to have Evan Mobley at least get you 15 to 20 a night. You got to find ways. I mean, it's the NBA. You gotta find a way to power through and get it through.
Tim?
Kind of further Skylar's point. So I think my real frustration is we don't have a copy of the Cavs scouting report, but I think we have a general idea what the scouting report looks like before they play a lot of these teams, right? And this one is more than likely like, hey, don't let Fran VanVleet have wide open shots. I think the Cavs have had this innate ability to not stay home on the other team's best shooters, and that's really frustrating. So like Skylar said, like the zone in Houston on Wednesday night to kind of get them back in the game when they went on that 19-0 run was great. Tonight wasn't necessarily as effective. But and I understand, like, I would understand if it was something where like Fred VanVleet's taking like dribble handoffs or he's like coming off like screens. That's not happening. I mean, Fred VanVleet was literally just like on islands at times tonight. So I think really maybe there's something in the scouting report where and this is not just a Houston thing. I mean, no one's going to be mad at them for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander doing what he did in the OKC game, right?
Of course.
That's who he is. But, you can live with Shai doing that, but why is Lou Dort also kicking your butt? Who I love, is a great player. Why is Shai Williams also destroying you? The scouting report, I think something there's got to be some more, like Scott said, the aggressiveness and maybe the attention to detail is probably something that's going to be picked up a little more.
Yeah, you kind of overlapped with mine, but I'll give it anyway. I do think the team's playing a little undisciplined. And to perfect example of your point, I wrote this down. Like when they were trying to come back at the beginning of the fourth quarter, I think they'd cut the lead to like 8 or 9. Max Strus, like, so they throw the ball to Steven Adams in the post with his back to the basket, 15 feet from the basket, and Max Strus doubles down on Steven Adams in 2025 and gives up a wide open 3 to Fred VanVleet. Adams literally just kicked it right back to the wing, the guy he was directly looking at, for a wide open 3 to a guy who's, I don't know, made 43s against the Cavs the last 2 games. Like that was a perfect example of being undisciplined. The other thing I've noticed on the offensive end, as far as undisciplined, they still are, especially Mitchell and Garland breaking down the defense and everything. But like, it seems like, a specific play I have noticed Garland and especially Mitchell getting penetration and then going up in the air and then not knowing where to go with the ball.
Yes.
I've noticed that happening a lot the last few games, where I feel like I never remembered it happening, at least enough to be memorable at the beginning of the season. So I think it's like, like going maybe too far off script, getting away from who you do. I mean, we talked about the first half of the season was an incredible. They're 36-6. They're on pace to match the Golden State Warriors of 2015. But if we're being honest, they're not that talented of a team. They're an incredibly talented team, but they're not a talented enough team where they can win being undisciplined and not playing the right way. They are good enough to beat everybody when they do, but they are not good enough to win when they don't.
So to further piggyback off that, and one thing I've noticed too is how many times have we had a game we've come on here and we've been like, man, isn't it amazing how Garland's so good at finding Allen the dunker spot? Mm-hmm. Teams are finally really putting a lot of pressure on the dunker spot, so Allen can't just sit there and have a ball pop into his lap anymore. So to kind of further Skylar's point, where maybe the league's catching up a little bit to Kenny's game plan, I'm really genuinely curious to see how they fix that and what the move is there, because the dunker spot's wonderful for guys like, the guys like the Cavs have, but if people are putting 2 guys in there and you can't throw it to them, then it's useless.
Yeah, but like if they're running that pick and roll and they're guarding well enough that Garland can't get off his floater, right, which is the thing of beauty, and they're guarding Allen, that means someone's open somewhere. The defense is rotating somewhere. So it's like, what is your counter move? Is your counter move to have one of your best 3-point shooters in the opposite corner and to hit them? Do you have someone, back cutting on the other side of the floor, something, and so that's where we're at. What is the counter move to them taking away would have been some of your bread and butter?
And they need to figure out what that counter move is, like, quickly. Tim and I talked about it before or last night. Like, you look at the schedule, you have Detroit coming to town, who's playing really well. Mm-hmm. Miami, Atlanta, Dallas, Boston, Detroit, Timberwolves. Like, basically from now until the All-Star break is a pretty tough schedule.
For sure.
Yeah.
Like, those are all games that if you're playing the way that you're playing now, those could very easily just be a big old losing streak.
Yeah.
So you got to figure out what this counter move is, like, tomorrow.
I agree. And what would be the biggest shame is if they kind of let this poor play continue going into the All-Star break for whatever reason. They're burnt out. They're hitting a lull. They're just not playing as well for whatever reason. And then to go from having a 5-6 game lead against the rest of the East the whole season to all of a sudden at the All-Star break, it's like a 2 game lead or a 1 game lead. Right. Like, on a bad weekend, you could no longer be in first in the East anymore. So that's really what I want to avoid. I'm not freaking out about this, but I'm trying to prevent that, because if the Bostons and New York get within striking distance of getting the number 1 seed, they're going to throw everything they can to get it.
Yeah. And we're saying all this stuff about like what's really frustrating and difficult, but in hindsight, it's like, we all still really love this team. We all still feel really, really good about this team.
Well, we do. But we want this team to hit their max potential. Right. Their max potential is an Eastern Conference Finals or an NBA Finals or winning it or something, right? The way they're playing in January, their ceiling is what they've done the last 2 years. Yeah, the way they played before that, what we hopefully they can get back to the ceiling raises. So that's a frustrating thing. We know what this kind of team can do in the playoffs. We want to see what the team of, the first 2.5 months could do.
Yeah. The other thing is like, you kind of want them to play well because we're getting into that trade deadline, and you don't want the front office. And this is not something that Koby Altman would do, but you don't want the front office to get jumpy because we're in a cold streak going into the deadline, and make a move that might not be necessary. Something that messes up. I think Kenny's very in tune with the locker room chemistry. He knows like that can't change in order for it to win, but you don't want to add pressure to the front office just because of a streak of poor play.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I have 0% worry about Koby Altman making a panic move after taking 5 years being patient building this team, right? That said, they just need to improve whatever avenue it is that they take to improve, just because, like I said, I think this is a real chance for them to have a special season. And I know, Skylar, when you and I talked to Luca of Real Cavs fans, like it was the whole thing about like, do you go over the luxury tax and start the clock on that and everything? I'm like, the more I thought about it after that episode, I'm like, go win right now. Tomorrow's not promised. Like if you can make a move with the team you got that can put you over the edge, especially if it's a player that is signed for a couple more years and can lock in with the core, go make the move and win. Like not a panic move, but like, I don't care about starting a clock. Like, tomorrow's not guaranteed. So just do whatever you need to do, Koby. We have faith in you.
So yeah, I mean, that's what we said. We said that this is a team that you push the chips in, you go all in on, because this team has proved to us all season that they can do it.
So speaking of, Kenny Atkinson just had this quote. Sam Amico just put this out. He said, "I think this patch of adversity is good. It's great. This is the NBA. It's tough. Let's see how we respond to this. We'll bounce back." And that's exactly why I love that Kenny Atkinson is the coach of the Cavaliers. No detail, just flat out like, we're good.
He is
fine.
He is an ultimate, seems like just an ultimate positivity guy and everything. And yeah, like I get it. Like the one thing, getting back to the game tonight, and then we'll look ahead at the schedule. The one other thing I didn't like, and most importantly, Evan Mobley's back and he's healthy, right? We got to stop having games where Allen and Mobley get outplayed by inferior big men on the other team, because Sengun and Adams, like, frankly, dominated the stat line up against Mobley and Allen. Pretty much the only stat that Mobley and Allen led in was minutes played. So we need to get that first step, get Evan healthy, everything, and now get them back to being the dominant interior duo like they were for so much of the season.
Yeah, and before we do move on to previewing the Pistons, I want to make sure we do make note. Darius Garland tonight became 11th all-time in Cavs history in points scored. So
wild.
That's on the heels of I think you guys mentioned it. He's now third all-time in three-pointers. Past Mark Price, the legend Mark Price.
Yeah, the guy who can make the case after LeBron might be the second best Cav ever.
Yeah, isn't that wild? I mean, you kind of, Darius is so young and everything. Like, you don't realize he's already accumulating quite a bit of stats in the history of the Cavs rankings.
Especially considering he's had 2 years where he's lied in like major injuries. Like, it's pretty impressive. Yeah,
for sure. Okay, well, let's talk about the Pistons. Monday night. This is a team, they played the Pistons. They only play them once. I'm only remembering the game early in the year where we came away like really impressed with the Pistons. The Cavs won, but like Cade Cunningham had a huge game. Jaden Ivey, who's now out for the year, had a big game. So I do Detroit, give credit to them. They've have really taken a leap this year from being one of the worst teams to now being fairly comfortably in the playoff picture, or at least the play-in picture. And they're the type of team that can give the Cavs trouble with, size in the perimeter. So Skylar, I'll start with you. Like, what do you see for the game Monday night, whether it's, from, how the matchup with the Pistons or just how, some of these ways we'd like to see the Cavs play differently?
I don't know, man. I think the Cavs, something's going to change. I think they're starting to get in their own heads about this losing thing, and I think a lot of it is because we've had an unbelievable season this far, a 15-game win streak, a 12-game win streak. So we haven't had to face losing spells other than one back-to-back of Hawks. So I expect them to, I don't want to say right the ship, but I expect them to be playing with a higher intensity, higher, I don't want to say effort, but higher intensity, higher physicality than we've been seeing. Kenny and his coaches are smart guys. I'm sure they're seeing the same stuff that we are. So I intend for that, and I think ESPN intends for that too, because their matchup predictors 25 to 75 Cavs.
Skylar, I'm really, really actually concerned you haven't said anything about plus minus tonight.
I didn't want to break Skylar's heart, but for the year, the Cavs now officially are under 10 plus minus on average for the season. The month of January, they're down to a plus minus of 2 for January.
Yeah.
So
to kind of talk about these trends we've been discussing about the Cavs, the Detroit Pistons offense, I'm sure you're not shocked to know, still stinks.
Mhm.
But in the month of January, they've been the third best defense in the NBA. They have been locked down. And a lot of that's Cade Cunningham, who is really, really, like we talked about Donovan Mitchell just upping his effort defensively. Cade Cunningham has really upped his effort defensively. Not that I think he can really guard Garland or Mitchell, which might be the problem of the Cavs in this sense, but we know how physical they are. Guys like Jalen Duren, who are just rebounding machines, who I'm a huge fan of. They have great veteran guys who really like playing for this team. Like Tobias Harris has been really good this year for them. Like he's been a really nice fit for them. Tim Hardaway Jr. has been a nice adult in the room for them. They are your JB Bickerstaff team, right? We know about this, right? We saw it for 3 years. This is that team, and this is how they play, and this is how hard they play. So they are going to be physical, and they're going to make you hit tough shots against them. I like Cleveland's chances to hit tough shots against them for sure. I would feel a lot better if Isaac Okoro was back to kind of be the guy to guard Cade in this game, because you're going to see a lot of Evan coming up and guarding Cade at the top of the key. But I feel pretty good that the Cavs are better than this team. And I thought the Cavs were better than Houston. I thought the Cavs were better than Philadelphia, obviously, and we're in the situation we're in. But I certainly feel no issue in saying the Cavs are a better team than the Pistons. And Monday night at the Q, they do not want to have JB Bickerstaff come in here and win against them. I think they're going to take care of business.
Yeah, I hope so. I just have 3 quick points. First of all, don't let the other Thompson brother have a triple-double Monday night. How about, throw a body on him on a box out every once in a while? How many tip dunks or dunks did he have on back cuts tonight?
Dude, those two, him and Cade, are going to be guarding Garland and Mitchell. It's going to be Red Rover.
Yeah. So I like that. That's one thing. The other thing I would, now that Mobley's back, I'd like to see Mobley and Allen establish their presence on both sides of the floor. This is a game they should have an advantage on the inside. I like Jalen Duren. I think he's a solid player, but frankly, the Cavs should have an advantage there. So I'd like to see them do that. And then more overall, I was looking at it as Skylar was, reading out some of the schedule. This is the first of 9 games between them and the All-Star break, and the losing streak, and then just go into the All-Star break solid. I'm not saying they got to go on a 9-0 run, but if they can finish this, stretch not 6-3, I think that'll get them. They'll have at least a 4 or 5 game lead in the East still, barring anything crazy. And just have a solid kind of, this last little stretch to the All-Star break, and then, everybody can take some time off then.
Yeah,
6-3 with a win over the Celtics. That's going to be one of the 6.
that would be nice. I mean, it's set up to go about 6-3 because they play a lot of good teams. They play one very good team in Boston. They play 2 bad teams in Washington and Toronto. So I think 6-3 is very realistic in that stretch. And so, yeah, if one of those 6 wins is against Boston, all the better. All right, guys, anything else before we close out here?
You said it. God bless the scheduling committee for making the Raptors one of the teams the Cavs play 4 times that's not in the division. Thank you for that. Unfortunately, they also did that for the Celtics too. But
yeah. All right, we will be back for Monday night's game. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Sky's not falling. Let's get this turned around, Cavs fans. Thank you to Blue Wire for letting us keep doing this, and for Tim Daniels, Skylar Webker. Have a good night.
Go Cavs.